You've built yourself into someone the world told you to become. You worked out. You made money. You dressed like success itself. On paper, you are everything she should want. And yet, when you sit across from her, there's silence between her smiles. She's there, but not there. Her eyes drift to the waiter, to her phone, to anywhere but you. You talk, you lead, you impress. But deep down you feel it, that hollow space where desire should be. Meanwhile, there's another man she can't stop thinking about. He's not richer, not better looking. He doesn't even try. He texts slowly, speaks less, and never seems to care whether she stays or leaves. And yet she can't walk away. She lies awake wondering, what is he doing? Does he even think about me? That's when the truth hits you. You did everything right, and that's why you lost. Because attraction doesn't reward effort. It punishes it. You've been taught that the more you do, the more you earn. Work harder, achieve more, show value, and love will follow. But love doesn't follow logic. Desire is not a salary. It's chaos, born in mystery, nurtured in distance, killed by certainty. Women don't fall for the man who proves himself. They fall for the man who doesn't need to. Because when you try to be chosen, you silently tell her, I don't believe I'm enough. She doesn't need to hear those words. She feels them. In your tone, in the way you fill every silence instead of sitting in it, in the way your eyes ask, am I doing enough? Effort, when born from insecurity, is the loudest confession of fear. And fear has no place in attraction. Let me tell you a story. Ethan spent 3 years turning himself into the perfect man. He quit drinking, built a business, and learned every dating technique he could find. When he finally sat across from the woman he wanted, she smiled, listened, and left a polite text the next morning. You're such a great guy. 3 words. The gravestone of modern dating. That same night, Ethan went for a drink with his old friend Leo, a man who had none of his achievements. But Leo had something else. Stillness. He wasn't performing. He didn't chase validation. He made people relax. And the more he said nothing, the more people leaned toward him. Ethan realized, while he was busy chasing admiration, Leo was radiating certainty. And women don't crave admiration. They crave emotional gravity. Here's the paradox. The more you try to win her, the more you prove you're already losing yourself. You don't need to be colder or crueler. You need to be quieter inside, to let your energy speak louder than your words. Because confidence isn't what you show her. It's what you no longer need to prove. The moment you stop performing for her attention, you become the very thing she can't ignore. The man she remembers when she's with someone else. The silence she can't stop hearing. The calm she can't recreate. Effort kills attraction, but presence, that quiet, unshakable knowing of your own worth, that's what makes her addicted. You've spent years chasing the dream. The house, the car, the perfect physique, the framed achievements that hang like medals on your wall. You thought they would silence the voice inside that whispers, you're still not enough. But the truth is, no matter how high you climb, the silence never leaves. There's a cruel irony in modern masculinity. We're taught that success is the cure for emptiness, that women will desire the man who stands at the top of the mountain. But once you arrive, you realize something strange. She doesn't fall in love with the view. She falls in love with the man who could lose everything and still remain unmoved. Because attraction doesn't come from achievement, it comes from stability. From the quiet confidence that says, I don't need the world to recognize me before I recognize myself. Imagine a man sitting in a cafe, his tailored suit spotless, his watch gleaming under the light. Across from him, a woman listens, smiles, but her energy is elsewhere. He talks about his success, his plans, his discipline, but his words sound like armor, not presence. Every sentence feels rehearsed, polished, hollow. Then, another man walks in, wrinkled shirt, soft eyes, calm demeanor. He doesn't brag, he doesn't perform. When he speaks, his voice carries no urgency, no need to impress. And the air shifts. The woman leans slightly forward, drawn to something she can't explain. It's not wealth. It's not words. It's energy. That invisible pull, that gravity. It comes from a man who no longer seeks validation through symbols. He owns himself so completely that the room rearranges around him. Society has convinced men that attraction is a reward system. You work hard, you level up, and love should follow like a paycheck. But the human heart doesn't work on transaction. You can't deposit confidence. You can't buy presence. The most magnetic men aren't the richest or most admired. They're the ones who are whole before anyone notices. It's not that success repels women. It's that success built on insecurity creates a scent they can smell a mile away. Women don't respond to numbers. They respond to resonance. They feel the difference between a man who's proud of what he's built and one who hides behind what he's built. Think about the people you've admired most in your life. The ones who could walk into a room and command it without a single word. They don't announce themselves. They don't seek permission to exist. They simply are. That stillness, the absence of trying, is what defines masculine magnetism. Ethan, from before, learned this too late. After years of perfecting the outside, he began to crumble inside. He couldn't sleep unless someone texted him first. He needed constant reassurance that he mattered. Every good job, every compliment, became his oxygen. But the more he sought approval, the less alive he felt. One day, his mentor, a man twice his age, said quietly, "Everything you've built will rot, Ethan. Not because it's weak, but because it's rooted in hunger. You're not proud of your success, you're addicted to what it says about you." That night, Ethan drove home in silence. For the first time, he didn't turn on music, didn't scroll his phone. He just sat there, breathing in the weight of truth. He realized he had built a mansion on a foundation of sand. External value is fragile. It depends on applause, attention, admiration, all things that live outside your control. The moment they fade, you collapse with them. Internal value, on the other hand, is quiet, invisible, untouchable. It's knowing your worth even when the world stops clapping. Here's what no one tells you. Women aren't attracted to wealth. They're attracted to how you handle it. They don't crave your success. They crave the peace that comes from a man who could lose it all and still be himself. Because true confidence doesn't grow in luxury. it grows in loss. A man who's comfortable with both abundance and emptiness is rare, and rarity, not perfection, is what creates addiction. You see, the reason most men lose attraction after success is simple. They built success to escape pain, not to express purpose. They believed that if they filled their lives with more, they would finally feel enough. But excess never heals emptiness, it only hides it. So, how do you shift? You stop building to prove and start building to express. You don't chase worth, you embody it. You stop asking, will this make me desirable? And start asking, does this make me whole? Because when you operate from wholeness, you stop negotiating your value. You stop needing her interest to validate your identity. And, paradoxically, that's when she feels the strongest pull, toward a man who isn't begging for gravity, but who already is gravity. Ethan eventually learned this. He stopped posting quotes about confidence and started sitting alone in silence. He sold the car he bought to impress people he didn't respect. He went on fewer dates but had deeper conversations. He stopped chasing admiration and started mastering peace. Months later, he met a woman who didn't fall for his image. She fell for his presence. He didn't talk about what he'd built. He talked about what he'd learned. And for the first time, he saw it in her eyes, the spark he'd been chasing for years. It wasn't because he'd changed his strategy. It was because he'd changed his state. He no longer needed to be loved to feel complete. And that made him impossible to forget. The world tells you to build a life that impresses others. But attraction doesn't live in admiration. It lives in authenticity. The most dangerous man is the one who doesn't need to prove anything. He doesn't chase attention. He creates silence. And silence is magnetic. Success can fill your hands, but only peace can fill your soul. And the man who has peace has power. There's a moment every man remembers. The instant he realizes control doesn't come from force, but from energy. It's that quiet second when a room bends toward one person, not because he's loud or dominant, but because he doesn't need to compete. Presence, not performance. That's the essence of power. Ethan learned this the hard way. Months after changing his life, he met someone who mirrored his old self, a man desperate to prove, to charm, to dominate every conversation. They were at a dinner with friends. The air was heavy with voices, everyone speaking louder to be heard. And in that chaos, Ethan noticed how energy moved like an invisible tide. One person at the table didn't speak much. He didn't interrupt, didn't reach for attention. But whenever he did speak, people leaned closer, as if pulled by gravity itself. It wasn't what he said, it was how he existed. That night, Ethan realized what women instinctively feel. Power is not in words, it's in the space between them. True confidence doesn't need to announce itself, it simply fills the room. Most men mistake dominance for power. They think control means talking louder, standing taller, asserting opinions. But power without calm is just noise. Real authority comes from groundedness, from being unshaken, no matter who's watching. The man who owns his frame doesn't react to the world reacts to him. When a woman meets such a man, something ancient stirs inside her. Not fear, but fascination. She feels the steadiness of his energy and instinctively tests it just to see if it's real. She teases, withdraws, challenges, all without realizing she's doing it. And the way he responds or doesn't determines everything. A reactive man crumbles under these small tests. He raises his voice, explains himself, tries to regain control through logic. But the grounded man doesn't flinch. He lets the storm pass through him. His silence says more than any defense could, and that silence tells her something powerful. He doesn't need her to validate his worth. There's a reason women are drawn to men who can remain still in chaos. It's not about masculinity in the cultural sense. It's about polarity. Where she flows, he grounds. Where she feels, he steadies. The dynamic is magnetic because it creates balance, and balance is the one thing most people are starving for. Imagine a scene in a crowded bar. Two men approach the same woman. The first is animated, charming, full of words. He tries to impress, to entertain, to make her laugh. The second is calm. He listens, speaks slowly, leaves pauses in the air that invite curiosity. He doesn't need to fill the silence, he owns it. The first man's energy climbs higher with every second, until it begins to feel frantic. The second man stays at sea level, unbothered. And as the night goes on, she drifts toward him. Not because he's better, but because his energy feels safer. In a world that moves too fast, safety becomes irresistible. Power isn't about winning the room. It's about not needing the room to win. When you anchor yourself in presence, your energy becomes unmistakable. People can sense when you're not performing. They relax around you. They trust you. And trust is the foundation of attraction, of leadership, of everything worth having. Ethan started practicing this new awareness. Every time he entered a conversation, he asked himself one question: am I leading with noise or with presence? He began to notice how often he filled silence just to avoid discomfort. So he stopped. He learned to breathe, to listen, to let others reveal themselves first. He discovered that silence is not empty, it's full of information. When you're quiet, you see what people are truly saying beneath their words. And when you understand energy at that level, you no longer need to fight for attention. It comes to you. There's a psychological explanation for this. Humans are wired to mirror emotional states. When someone is anxious, others around them begin to feel restless. When someone is calm, others unconsciously sync with that peace. This is what women feel in the presence of a grounded man: emotional safety. And safety creates space for desire. Because when she no longer needs to protect herself, she can finally feel. That's the paradox. The man who seeks control loses it. The man who releases control becomes irresistible. Women aren't drawn to certainty. They're drawn to strength wrapped in stillness. It's the same principle that makes the ocean hypnotic. Powerful, but calm. Massive, but silent. Ethan's next date wasn't about strategies or tactics. He didn't plan what to say. He just showed up. When she spoke, he listened, not waiting to respond, not calculating. When she paused, he let the pause live, and slowly, the energy between them shifted. Her laughter became softer. Her eyes lingered longer. It wasn't magic, it was resonance. The quiet assurance of a man fully at home in himself. There's a kind of man whose presence can quiet a room without saying a word. Not because he's special, but because he's free from the constant need to prove. That's the kind of energy people remember. It lingers long after the conversation ends. You can spend your life trying to dominate, or you can learn to radiate. One is control, the other is power, and women instinctively can tell the difference. Power isn't loud, it's silent. It's the warmth in the air when someone truly sees you. It's the ease that replaces tension when you're near. It's the rare comfort of someone who doesn't want to win you. He simply is. When Ethan left that dinner, he didn't feel triumphant. He felt peaceful. He realized that every moment of his life had been a negotiation for approval, and the moment he stopped negotiating, he became unshakable. Presence isn't a technique, it's a way of being. It's what remains when all your pretending ends. And that, more than anything else, is the frame of power. The energy that draws the world to you without ever asking it to come. It always begins quietly. Not with fireworks, not with chaos, but with the smallest pulse of uncertainty. A text unanswered. A conversation left hanging in midair. A glance that says everything and nothing at once. That's how it starts. The slow rhythm of curiosity that turns into obsession. Most men think women fall for words or looks or gestures. But what truly draws them in is contrast. The dance between attention and absence. Between presence and distance. It's that emotional rhythm that creates the loop. The addictive cycle where she feels high when she has your attention, and restless when she doesn't. The more unpredictable the pattern, the more powerful the pull. Ethan used to wonder why women lost interest so quickly. He thought consistency was love's highest virtue. He texted back instantly, made himself available, showed affection at every opportunity. He thought reliability would build trust. But instead, it built boredom. There was no mystery left to unfold, no tension left to explore. Everything was known, and the known kills desire. Then one day, he met someone different. A woman who was used to being chased. She expected the usual pattern. The flood of attention followed by slow withdrawal. But Ethan, now different himself, no longer played that game. He wasn't withholding. He was just whole. His life didn't orbit around her availability. Sometimes he replied quickly. Sometimes he didn't. Sometimes he spoke for hours. Sometimes he said nothing at all. He was neither cold nor clingy. He was simply living. And that energy, the balance between accessibility and self-containment, was what hooked her. She started thinking about him more, wondering when he'd call, checking her phone, waiting for the familiar vibration of a message that might not come. And when it did, the feeling hit twice as strong. That's the loop. Intermittent reward. The same mechanism that keeps gamblers glued to the table, scrolling for one more win. What Ethan had stumbled upon wasn't manipulation, it was nature. The human brain releases dopamine not from constant pleasure, but from interrupted pleasure, from uncertainty. When she can't predict what comes next, her mind fills in the blanks. She creates stories, fantasies, hopes. Every unknown becomes a space for imagination, and imagination is the most potent drug in the world. The difference between authenticity and manipulation lies in intent. The manipulator withholds affection to gain control. The grounded man doesn't withhold. He simply doesn't force. He moves through life in rhythm with himself, and that rhythm becomes magnetic. She senses that he isn't reacting to her. He's responding to life. And that calm unpredictability is what triggers her emotional fascination. Women don't get addicted to men. They get addicted to how they feel around certain men. They crave the emotional contrast, the thrill of not knowing, the relief of connection, the ache of waiting. It's not about the man himself. It's about the way his presence creates motion within her. Every silence becomes a question, every word a small reward. But here's the part no one tells you. The same mechanism that fuels attraction can also destroy it. because the line between mystery and neglect is thin. A man who disappears completely creates anxiety, not fascination. And anxiety without connection turns to resentment. The power lies in balance, the ability to create space without abandoning it, to give energy without suffocating. When Ethan understood this, his relationships changed. He stopped thinking in terms of strategies and started thinking in terms of energy flow. He noticed that when he was centered, women mirrored that balance. When he was calm, they relaxed. When he was scattered, they became demanding. Energy is contagious, and the person with the stronger frame always sets the tone. One night, sitting by the window, he realized how attraction really worked. It wasn't about conquest or control. It was about chemistry born from polarity. Masculine energy, when stable, gives space for feminine energy to move freely. The more grounded he was, the more she could surrender. The more he chased, the more she resisted. Love wasn't a tug of war. It was a dance between gravity and motion. Stillness doesn't mean distance. It means knowing that your presence has weight even when you're silent. It's the same way a storm can sense the pull of the earth beneath it. The more you try to control desire, the more it slips away. But when you let it breathe, when you trust its rhythm, it deepens naturally. Ethan saw it clearly one evening. They sat together in a small cafe. She spoke, then paused, waiting for him to fill the silence. He didn't. He just smiled slightly, holding her gaze. And in that moment, she leaned forward, just a fraction, pulled not by words but by energy. It wasn't dominance, it wasn't game. It was connection, real, alive, untamed. He understood then that the most powerful form of attraction isn't when someone wants you. It's when they can't quite define why they want you. It's a feeling that lives beneath logic, beyond the checklist of traits and appearances. It's the feeling of being seen without performing, desired without asking, known without explaining. That's the loop, the emotional pendulum that keeps her coming back. Not for the drama, but for the depth, for the unpredictable steadiness of a man who doesn't beg for love, but creates space for it to grow. For the silence that feels like safety. The addiction isn't to attention, it's to contrast, to the friction between certainty and mystery, presence and absence, words and silence. And the man who understands this doesn't need to manipulate emotions. He embodies the balance that emotions crave. When you stop trying to impress and start allowing space, you stop being a performer and become a mirror. And in that reflection, she sees herself differently, braver, softer, more alive. That's why she can't walk away. Because deep down, she's not addicted to you. She's addicted to who she becomes when she's near you. That night, as Ethan walked home beneath the city lights, he finally understood. Desire isn't built on possession. It's built on polarity. It's the tension between wanting and having, between holding and letting go. And when a man learns to live inside that tension, calmly, quietly, without needing to resolve it, he stops chasing love. Love begins chasing him. There comes a point in every man's life when he realizes that nothing outside of him will ever make him feel whole. It doesn't happen in a flash of enlightenment. It happens in the quiet aftermath, after the success that didn't satisfy, after the relationship that couldn't save him, after the applause that faded faster than he thought possible. One day, he wakes up and understands that the only thing left to master is himself. Ethan reached that point the night he lost everything he thought defined him. The business deal collapsed. The messages stopped coming. The mirror no longer reflected the man he was trying to be. For hours he sat there, surrounded by trophies that suddenly felt like ruins. He thought he had been building strength, but what he had really built was armor. Layers of validation glued together by fear. When those layers cracked, he didn't feel powerful. He felt naked. But it was in that nakedness that his real transformation began. For the first time, he stopped trying to fix the silence. He didn't reach for distractions, didn't text anyone, didn't post something to remind the world he existed. He simply sat there and faced the truth he had been running from. That his worth had been a performance, and the audience had never been real. What remained was the question that separates men from boys. Can you sit with yourself without needing the world to clap? The next morning he went for a walk before dawn. The city was asleep, the air cool and empty. No one to impress, no one to outshine. He watched the first light touch the buildings and felt something inside him loosen. He realized that for the first time in years he wasn't thinking about outcomes. He wasn't calculating moves or wondering what someone thought of him. He was simply present, breathing, alive. That stillness became his anchor. He began to understand what Stoics had known for centuries. That freedom isn't the absence of pain, but the mastery of reaction. He could not control the world, but he could control how he met it. Every disappointment became a lesson in endurance. Every rejection, a mirror showing where his peace still depended on others. He stopped chasing certainty and started cultivating resilience. When someone criticized him, he listened, but he no longer bled. When someone praised him, he smiled, but he no longer floated. He learned that balance is not neutrality. It's strength without noise. Presence turned into power. Not the loud kind, but the quiet authority of someone who no longer needs permission to exist. The same calm that once made him feel detached now made him magnetic. People noticed, though he never tried to be noticed. Women who once tested him now relaxed around him. Men who once competed with him now sought his advice. He didn't become different, he became centered. And centered men change the temperature of every room they enter. One evening, a woman he had dated months earlier reached out. They met for coffee. She told him she couldn't explain it, but he felt different, calmer, more grounded. She said being near him made her feel safe. He smiled, knowing it wasn't about her. It was about the energy he carried now, the peace that replaced performance. He didn't need to chase validation anymore because he had found something far more permanent. Self-respect. There's a power in self-validation that most men never experience because they never stop looking outward long enough to feel it. They live trapped in comparison, always measuring themselves against other men, against expectations, against the phantom image of who they think they should be. But comparison is a thief dressed as motivation. It steals presence and replaces it with anxiety. The man who is self-validated doesn't compete because he understands that no one else is living his life. He's not above others. He's simply free from them. Ethan began to notice how differently people treated him when he stopped needing anything from them. Conversations became lighter, laughter more genuine. He could listen without waiting to speak, love without fear of loss, and walk away without bitterness. He didn't shut down his emotions. He learned to own them. When sadness came, he sat with it. When anger rose, he observed it. When joy appeared, he let it pass without clinging. This was Stoicism, not suppression, but clarity, the ability to feel everything and still choose peace. He once read a line from Marcus Aurelius that echoed through his mind. "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That became his quiet mantra. When a client insulted him, he breathed. When a friend betrayed him, he didn't seek revenge. When a woman he cared for drifted away, he didn't chase closure. He learned that closure doesn't come from answers. It comes from acceptance. Acceptance is the soil where confidence grows. The more he practiced, the more he saw how fragile external validation truly is. Compliments fade, attention shifts, beauty changes, money comes and goes. But peace, real peace, stays. It's not glamorous. It doesn't post well on social media. But it's the only currency that never loses value. And that's what women sense when they meet a grounded man. They feel the gravity of someone who isn't trying to prove. They feel a steadiness they can lean into. It's not arrogance. It's quiet certainty. Ethan realized that every love he had lost had been a lesson in attachment. He had mistaken possession for connection and validation for intimacy. But love that depends on being needed isn't love. It's fear wearing perfume. He began to love differently. He gave without needing to receive. He listened without needing to fix. He stayed because he wanted to, not because he was afraid to be alone. And the irony was, the less he needed people, the more deeply he connected with them. Months passed, and one evening as he looked out over the city lights, he felt something that no success had ever given him: quiet joy. Not excitement, not pride, just calm contentment. He understood now that Stoicism wasn't about being hard. It was about being whole. A man who is whole cannot be broken, because he no longer divides himself between what he feels and what he shows. He no longer performs. He embodies. That is the essence of the masculine core. It's not dominance or detachment. It's integrity, the alignment between heart and action, emotion and control. It's the courage to feel deeply while remaining unshaken. It's the ability to love fiercely without losing yourself. And when a man reaches that state, he doesn't chase attraction anymore. He radiates it. He becomes the still point in a spinning world, the eye of the storm that others are drawn to without knowing why. He has no need to prove his worth, no fear of losing it. And that calm, that inner stillness becomes his signature. The world can rise and fall around him, but he remains. Not hard, not cold, just whole. That night, as the wind moved through the city and the lights flickered like tiny universes, Ethan smiled. He finally understood the truth that every man must face. You cannot control who stays, or who loves you, or what the world thinks. But you can control your state, your peace, your presence. And when you master that, you stop living at the mercy of emotion. You start living from the strength of it. That is the quiet victory no one sees but everyone feels. There comes a moment when the chase finally ends. Not because you've won, but because you no longer need to play. The noise of the world softens, the questions fade, and what used to feel like loss now feels like release. Ethan didn't notice it happening at first. It wasn't a dramatic transformation or a single day of clarity. It was quieter than that. It began with a simple shift. He stopped needing to be needed. He had spent years learning the psychology of attraction, dissecting patterns, mastering control. But mastery became meaningless when he realized that the point was never to be irresistible to others. The real work was to become irreplaceable to himself. He no longer sought to make women addicted. He no longer measured his worth by the way someone looked at him. The addiction he had spent so long trying to create was just a mirror of his own emptiness. When that emptiness was gone, so was the need to fill it. He started noticing beauty in ordinary things. The way the sunlight hit the glass of his coffee cup. The sound of footsteps echoing through the morning street. The quiet weight of peace that followed him everywhere. There was no longer a restless hunger in his chest, no urge to impress, no craving for attention. Freedom had stopped being an idea. It had become a state of being. One evening, he met a woman by chance at an art gallery. They talked for hours, not about attraction or philosophy, but about life, its strange moments of joy, its silent cruelties, its humor. There was no tension, no strategy, no testing of boundaries, just presence. At one point, she looked at him and said softly, "You're hard to read. It's not that you're closed off, it's that you're still." He smiled. "Stillness isn't emptiness," he said. "It's peace." She nodded, understanding more than he expected. And for the first time, he realized that true connection doesn't happen when you're trying to be understood. It happens when you no longer fear being misunderstood. That subtle shift between control and acceptance is where love stops being a transaction and becomes a reflection. Ethan had once believed that the highest form of power was to make someone addicted to him. Now he saw that the highest form of love was to be free from addiction altogether. You cannot own desire. You can only embody it. When you stop demanding from others what you have learned to give yourself, you stop binding them with expectation. That's when love transforms from need into energy. It no longer clings, it flows. The irony is, once he stopped chasing, people started coming to him. Old flames reached out. Strangers lingered longer in conversation, but this time, the validation didn't taste like victory. It tasted neutral, almost invisible. He didn't feed on it anymore. He didn't reject it either. He simply let it pass through him like wind through an open window. The same woman he met at the gallery became part of his life for a while. They shared mornings and laughter, silences and space. There were moments of closeness and moments of distance, but none of it felt like a test. He didn't try to hold on to her, and because of that, she never felt the need to run. That was the quiet paradox. What you don't try to possess stays. She once asked him, "How do you stay so calm when things fall apart?" He thought for a moment and said, "Because I've learned that nothing real ever falls apart. Only illusions do." She smiled, and he knew that was the truest thing he had ever said. He began seeing love not as a pursuit, but as a mirror. The people who enter your life are reflections of your own state. When you are lost, you attract chaos. When you are insecure, you attract confusion. But when you are at peace, you attract peace. That's why love begins with solitude. If you can't sit alone without craving, you will always turn affection into a drug. One night, walking home beneath a sky full of fractured light, Ethan stopped on a bridge and looked at his reflection in the river. He thought about the man he used to be, one who begged for validation, who confused performance for presence, who mistook attention for love. That man had died quietly, somewhere along the way. replaced by someone who no longer needed to prove anything. He whispered to his reflection, "You're enough." And for the first time, it wasn't a mantra, it was a truth. The next day, he met his mentor again. The old man smiled at him and said, "You look different." "I finally stopped running," Ethan replied. "From what?" "From the idea that I needed to be loved to be whole." The mentor nodded. "Then you're finally ready to love." And that was the revelation he had been chasing all along. Love is not found in possession or dominance or pursuit. It's found in freedom, in the quiet confidence of knowing that nothing and no one can complete you because you were never incomplete. Ethan realized that every obsession, every heartbreak, every desperate chase had been a lesson pointing him back to himself. The world had tested him through loss, through desire, through rejection, until he finally understood that the purpose of love was never to fill the void, but to reveal it. Once you face your emptiness without fear, it transforms into depth. And from that depth you begin to attract people who see not your image, but your essence. Months later, he saw the woman from the gallery again. They walked together through the city without a destination. There was no performance, no anticipation. Just two people sharing the same rhythm of breath. When they parted ways, she said, "You have a strange kind of peace. It's like being near you makes the noise inside me go quiet." He smiled gently. "That's because I stopped trying to quiet the world. I just stopped adding to its noise." She stood there for a moment, then said, "That's rare." "It shouldn't be," he replied. And with that, she left, and he didn't look back. The man who once needed women to stay now felt gratitude even when they left. Because every person who walks away leaves a reflection behind, and that reflection teaches you where your peace still depends on something outside yourself. That's how you grow. That's how you become whole. Ethan finally understood that liberation doesn't come from being desired. It comes from no longer needing desire to define you. When you no longer depend on her attention to feel alive, you stop orbiting others and become your own center of gravity. You move differently, speak differently, breathe differently. You're no longer performing for the world. You're participating in it. He looked at the horizon, where the city lights met the night sky, and felt the calm hum of existence move through him. For the first time, he wasn't thinking about tomorrow or yesterday. He was exactly where he was meant to be here, now, complete. Peace had finally replaced hunger, and in that stillness he realized the most profound truth of all. The man who no longer needs to be loved is the one who is finally capable of loving.